In this video, we're going to be covering Batman Volume 1 from the New 52. It was released back in 2012, it's the issues that came out in 2011, and all of these are available on Comixology Unlimited right now. They do not sponsor us, but that's what I'm using to read through these issues. Though I think I do actually own this one physically, hard copy. Confirmed, I do have the physical copy of this book. Like I said, these are available on Comixology Unlimited, which if you didn't know, there's actually a free 30-day trial, so if you haven't already taken that, you can actually be following along with the series for free. But as a warning, if you haven't read those and you intend to, we are going to be talking with spoilers as we talk about these issues. This video is just going to be covering Volume 1, The Court of the Owls. So you've been warned, spoilers will start now. So as I mentioned in a previous video, this was actually the very first comic book that I ever read. It came out in 2011. It was Scott Snyder's starting his writing run on the New 52 Batman. For most of this book, the person drawing, the artist of the book, was Greg Capullo. And also we get a little bit by Jonathan Glape. Man, this was a really good time and place to just start reading comics for the first time. Little did I know that this was going to be the big kind of huge thing that it was in the comic book world, but this comic was both commercially and critically just really well accepted. And for good reason. The art is awesome. And the story's really cool. We get to see Batman, a character that we know, especially like, it doesn't do too much referencing of things that are old, which was good because it was the beginning of the New 52. And we get to see Batman, if you've ever seen the Dark Knight movies by Christopher Nolan, you can that's enough to start here. So you see Batman in a situation which is very unusual for him, which is he's facing a completely new villain, he's completely out of his element, and he's extremely overconfident in his ability to both assess and take care of the problems that we see here. When push comes to shove, Batman is forced to realize that so many things that he thinks that he knows about Gotham City, he doesn't actually know. There's been a secret society under his nose the entire time, and what you find out in this issue is they've actually existed inside of the Wayne Foundation funded buildings. The Owls have secret sanctums all over Gotham that Batman was never aware of. You find out in the issues that he was hoping when his parents died that the Court of the Owls legend, the legend that had been around forever, was true, because he had been hoping that his parents' death was not some random happenstance, and he had been hoping to attribute it to something like the Owls, but he was unable in his investigation as a child to come up with anything conclusive. And because of those hard memories, and because of his confidence in knowing what he thinks he knows about this city he's been searching for so long, he actually ends up getting captured by the Owls. And this volume does not end up in a good place for Batman. An army of extremely dangerous assassins that have essentially been around for, I think, hundreds of years, are all resurrected at the end of this, and they're all attacking Wayne Manor. And all kind of because Batman was a little bit too confident in his own abilities, both in the investigation that he did previously, and also in his ability to overcome any threat that happens in the city currently. Some of the cool things we get to see here is we get to see some cool interactions between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson. Multiple times throughout this volume and the volume to come, Nightwing really tries to show Bruce that he has his back and he wants to help him, but Bruce is just very self-absorbed and he doesn't want his help. And that ends up costing him. There's a period where Bruce Wayne almost dies here, where he's captured by the Owls and he's forced to be tortured and almost made insane by living in this dungeon for like 3 days or some period of time, when the entire Bat family is not sure what's happened to him. He might have died, and he almost did die. Everything that Batman knows is coming unraveled around him, and that's what makes this story so interesting. We get to see Batman in a place that he's not usually shown. He definitely has moments where he gets to be Batman and he investigates things and he finds things out and he kicks butt and he uses gadgets, but he's also vulnerable in a way that we don't always get to see him. And did I mention that the art is awesome just throughout this entire book? Some of these like monstrous things, and the ways that when Batman's going insane, the people in the court look like they have owl appendages, and they all are like owl-like with their skinny arms or talons for hands, or their faces have like feathering like things on them. I absolutely love Capullo's art all throughout this volume and some of the next volume that he's involved in. It's just very good. I think the fight scenes are drawn really well where they feel like they're extremely powerful and have a lot of impact. The Talons seem extremely trained in martial arts to the point where they're able to defeat Batman on multiple occasions, and I feel like it's drawn incredibly effectively to feel like there is pain and consequences involved for the injuries that are inflicted on both sides. Also, throughout this volume, we're kind of presented with an enemy that doesn't seem to have a weakness. He falls off of Wayne Tower from top to bottom, gets up and kills the guy who's driving him to the morgue. So we get to see an enemy that just seems to be all-powerful. Batman doesn't really have a way to defeat him at first, and that's always interesting to try to see a good guy overcome something that's seemingly impossible. It's a good part of every story arc. In addition to the retroactive continuity that we already mentioned with the Owls existing forever, we also get a little bit of ties to Dick Grayson and his backstory, where he was originally supposed to be a Talon, which we find out near the end of this volume. When I first read this, I kind of didn't think it was that big of a deal, which I was surprised and happy to see that Dick also didn't really care. He's like, well, that's not who I am. I may have supposed to have been that, but here's what I ended up becoming. I'm a superhero who helps Batman and helps the city of Gotham fight crime. All in all, I just think it's a really good story and really good comic book from start to finish. It's what got me into comic books in the first place, and I really stand by it being extremely powerful. In addition to my thoughts on this, we're going to cut over shortly to my friend Trevor, who's also going to talk about his reading through of this series. He's never read it before, so we're going to be getting a fresh take there. And now that I've shared my thoughts, I'm going to let him share his thoughts.
Now, I've spent hours now watching videos and listening to people do kind of reviews of comic books. And I think my approach is not going to go along with that. I'm going to be kind of saying, here's the story, and I'm going to be trying to look at the story from a more philosophical perspective and a perspective on interpreting the story itself. I'm going to use the comic book as the basis for conversations about ethics, conversations about religion, conversations about morality, conversations about, you name the concept, of all kinds of philosophical concepts. I'm going to be using the comic book as the basis to get there. This is what I will say. This new 52 initiative Batman starting in 2011, whoa, it's an awesome story. Awesome. The artwork, I have to admit, is awesome. I've tried to pay as much attention to it as possible. I'm reading it slower than I normally would because I am trying to pay attention to the artwork. It's beautifully drawn. It's beautifully written. It is a fascinating story dealing with all kinds of concepts, dealing with ideas of pride, of arrogance, of being blinded to the reality around us, how an enemy can be literally living almost within us and we don't even realize it in the face of what Batman is dealing with in this series. Whoa, do I got some philosophical things to approach. I think it's really good. And we'll look at it also from spiritual and theological perspective as well. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to try to approach these episodes in a short, concise way by focusing on, here's basically what I want you to get from this comic book, and here's the philosophical concept, here's the moral concept, here's the ethical question. Sometimes it will just be questions, and I'm not going to necessarily get into every aspect of the comic book itself. I'm not going to sit there and take apart the comic book as more as use the comic book simply to get me to the deeper topic. Now, I am not well versed in doing this, so you're going to give me a little leeway. There's going to be failure. There's going to hopefully be some success, but it's going to be a journey.
He had to look at it, and he was even told, you were a child then, you were a child then, you were a child then. But he didn't want to hear that. Maybe because it was too painful. Maybe because it was going to make him face the reality that life doesn't make any sense, that it is chaotic, and that random things occur for no purpose, for no meaning. And I think there's a little symbolism in the comic book of this concept. During one of the really dramatic sections of this comic book, the writers and the publishers of the comic book do something very interesting in Volume 1. In this issue, they do something really interesting. they have all the pages turned in wrong directions, right? Like it'll be turned sideways or it'll be literally upside down because it's trying to give you a sense to feel the chaos, to feel the insanity, the slipping from reality. And so you're trying to turn I was trying to read it on my iPad and I was trying to turn the page this way and that way and the page kept flipping and I'm like, okay, I can't read this. I was about to take a picture of it and try to hold it up to a mirror so I can read it, because what it was trying to show is the whole perception of reality, the whole perception of his identity, his whole perception of what he knew and didn't know was literally coming unraveled, coming frayed. He was losing touch with himself, losing touch with his identity, because he was coming face to face with the very thing that he had determined didn't exist. He was coming face to face with a reality that he was unwilling to accept. And so many times, that's us. We're unwilling to come to grips with reality for whatever reason. And I just want to end with one important quote from the comic book, a section of dialogue that I thought was very powerful, and hopefully you will as well. I'll read this too. I think it's very interesting. Some ancients believed that the moment of death brought with it visions. Not just visions of one's past or of things known to the dying, but visions of oneself as one truly existed in life. What past experience is making you vulnerable now? And what past experience is causing a blindness to you now that you're unable to perceive yourself as you really are? And is it true? So I'm asking a lot of questions. And is it true that at your death is the only time you will truly perceive yourself as you truly existed? And during life, our perception of ourselves is flawed and is not accurate. Does it take the moment of death for us to come to grips with who we really were as we truly lived, as we truly existed? There's a lot of this very philosophical concept pouring through the pages of Volume 1. It shows up artistically. It shows up even with the way they do the pages. It shows up in the dialogue. It shows up in very powerful quotes like this. It's fascinating read.
Now remember, we are reading these to get ready for the big summer events that are coming up in DC, the Year of the Villain event, and also Event Leviathan. And we're going to be addressing the issues that we're going to be covering leading up to that point as we continue, but we're going to be reading these Scott Snyder Batmans from the New 52. The next video that we make is going to be about Volume 2 of this same series, which continues directly after the Owls are released into Gotham. So look forward to that video coming out. If you've enjoyed these videos, this content, or if you have some kind of thoughts that you want to share, please let us know down in the comments below or by giving us a thumbs up on this video, letting us know that you like it. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified about when we're posting them, hit that bell button too, and you'll be notified every time we post a new video, including the video where we cover Volume 2 of this same series, like I said. If you think that there's something really, really important that we should be covering as we're leading into these two summer events, let us know down in the comments, because we're kind of going in blind. Like I said in our previous comic book video, I'm a little bit of a comic book casual. I'm trying to pick this stuff up, and I really like this stuff, but I don't have as much of the ties here as I do in things like video games or music. So let us know. Anyway, we hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.